Welcome to the latest episode of the Podiatry Business podcast with myself, Laura O'Donnell, podiatrist, clinic owner, and business mentor. And I also run a marketing agency for podiatry clinics worldwide. So today's podcast is called Will Discounting Devalue My Service? So where this comes from is a conversation I've had very, very recently with a clinic owner who was suggesting the idea of giving discounted appointments would devalue the worth of their clinic and of what they do and of their team. So what we're talking about here is initial consultations where you might give a discounted appointment. So for example, instead of charging $90, you might charge $39 to get that person in the door. That's what we're talking about. Or you might even offer a free appointment. Now, this clinic owner's diary, their own personal diary is full, but the diary of their staff is not full. There's too many white spaces, and what they want to do is they want to be able to fill the diary. Hence they've come to me and asked us to help them with their marketing. What they don't want to do is they don't want to have to cut their prices across the board all of the time, as their margins are thin at the moment as they try to build a business, and they want to be able to keep full prices, which is cool. I get that, and that's not what we're suggesting. But probably the biggest barrier for them is the idea that if they do that, if they offer discounted initial assessments or whatever, that they're going to feel themselves that they're undervalued, or that people are undervaluing them as a medical professional. Now, I don't dismiss this. I am a medical professional. I am proud of what I do, and I, in my clinical work, do a damn good job. I'm going tomorrow, the day after I record this podcast, I'm going to be treating patients, and I want to make sure that people feel I'm doing a good job. Now, the mistakes that I see clinic owners making and clinicians making is they just completely dismiss the idea of doing discounted or even free appointments or free sessions, initial assessments. And if they're done properly, they don't really need to do so. And as a result, what they're going to find is it's going to be harder to scale their business. It's going to be harder to fill those white spaces as a result of that than it would otherwise be, because your offer is just not enticing enough for people who have to make a decision: are they going to pick your clinic over all of the other clinics? And what will happen in a lot of occasions is they look just very similar. They all say the same stuff. I care, I have this qualification, here are my letters, and so on. And it's just not enough for them to pick you over or to get them up off the couch. Now, this clinic owner made the point that premium products do not discount. So premium products like, I don't know, Gucci, Ferrari, whatever you want it to be, and Mercedes-Benz, etc. And I went away and I had to think about this, and I have some examples. So, okay, number one, if you buy an Apple computer, that is a premium computer product. You can't get any more premium than that, really, can you? Yet Apple have at all times the ability to buy a discounted computer in their refurbished store. So I have never ever bought a brand new full price Apple. Why would I, when I can buy a refurbished one which gives me it's cheaper and gives me the exact same guarantee if I buy a new one? It doesn't mean that I think that suddenly Apple are not very good computers. Absolutely not. They also have run an offer, Apple computers, on Black Friday every single year. It's a time limited offer. But I don't look at Apple at Black Friday and go, oh no, they're not valued. I'm not going to buy them because they're cheaper. You can say the same thing about, say, a luxury car. So I had somebody point this out to me, that if you buy a luxury car, so if you buy, say, a Mercedes-Benz, which is, a luxury car, they're going to give you free servicing for a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on how you buy it. That is a discount. They're going to give you 0% finance if you buy it off them. That is a discount. I bought a car last year. I treated myself to a nice car. And what they did is they said any scratches, bangs, any of that kind of stuff, we'll cover it for free for 3 years. That is a discount. Doesn't mean that I think that that's not a higher end car that I've bought. Of course it is. And you wouldn't think so either. So if you give you the example of my own clinic. Now, in my clinic, it's probably square footage, is one of the biggest clinics in the country, and we are certainly one of the most expensive. But I built that clinic based off free appointments, not even discounted appointments, free initial assessments. We give a lot of free initial assessments away as I scale the business from just me to staff. I wanted to get them filled, give them the opportunity to get in front of patients and say to the patients, yeah, I can help you, come back, this is what we'll do. I then, as we started to get busier and needed to give away less free appointments, we weren't as dependent, started to go discounted. I said, well, if I'm going to do a free appointment, why don't I charge a discounted appointment for the same kind of thing? And we no longer need any of that. If you try to get into my clinic now, you could be waiting 2 weeks for any appointment. And I have 6, if not 7 clinical staff at this point. So I have managed to build what I regard as a premium product, good quality work, and we're very proud of what we do. And if you ask any of my staff, do we do a shoddy job, they'll say no, by offering free or even discounted appointments. So I'm hoping that maybe you're open to the idea of listening to what I'm saying. You might not be at this point saying, yeah, I'm going to do it 100%. But my argument is, if you do need to fill white spaces in your diary, then discounted appointments, or indeed free consultations, initial consultations in all of these cases, are a very, very useful tool. If you don't need to fill your diary, if you're already full, if you're already making money, etc., well, then don't do it. Why would you discount? Of course not. That's not my suggestion. But with this particular clinic owner, they had white spaces. They were not profitable enough. Their diary wasn't full enough. Now, the main issue is that clinic owners assume, and this clinic owner assumed, that price equals value. And that simply does not stand up to research. It's not my opinion. The research tells us that that is not the case. And we are supposed to be scientists. We're supposed to be scientists, and we only work off the research. And the research tells us that simply because you charge more does not mean that people will think it's better value. Okay, or more worthy. It's not as directly linked as that. So think of this. If you go and you get treatment in the health service, typically in most health services in the country, or in the world, especially the UK, Ireland, Australia, whatever, it's free, no charge. And are you suggesting, if you're making the suggestion that if it's free, it's not as good value or not as worthy, are you suggesting that the podiatrists that work in the health service are not giving as good value or not as worthy as you and your team are? I don't think you are, and I don't think if you went and got a job in the health service that you would say the same about you yourself. Or another example, have you ever gone out for an expensive meal, booked into a restaurant? I've done this with my wife, went to a vegetarian restaurant that had all these reviews and so on, and came home for it feeling that was bad value. I actually remember coming home still hungry. But so because it was expensive, didn't mean I had felt it was good value or worthy. And it's because, think about it, if people only decided to judge what they're going to do based on price, they will always pick the cheaper thing, won't they? Because it's a commodity. But they do not do that. Okay, they simply don't do that. It's not as straightforward as that. Value, or perception of value, or worth, same interchangeable, is only a perception. It's an emotion. It's not an actual thing. And it is a perception that is determined by the feeling if that person feels that it has met their emotional expectation. So when I went to that restaurant, I would have had an emotional expectation that I would have had a nice time with my wife and that I would have enjoyed the meal and it would have felt great, etc. And I didn't meet that expectation. Therefore, I felt it was not worthy of what I was spending. So it's not directly linked. So how do you actually use discounted appointments or free consults? Because there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. So to fill your white spaces, what you need is more than I care more. We have more qualifications than that guy. Or we have a nicer looking clinic than that guy. None of that is going to cut the mustard with your patients. They frankly don't care. If they did, they'd all be coming in asking you what were your qualifications. And I don't know about you, but it is pretty rare that a patient would say, did you get a 2-1 or a first in your qualification? They're not going to ask that. They're only interested in what can you do for me, which is fine, because that's human nature. And until you, as a clinic owner, this is what I said to the clinic owner that I was speaking to, until you have the luxury of being too full, okay, to make it worth your while, okay, until your diary is too full, you need to make it worthwhile for people to choose your clinic over everyone else's clinic. That is something other than we care more, we have a better looking clinic, etc. We have nicer uniforms. That won't work. So until you have that opportunity, which I have in my clinic currently, then you have to think outside the box. And discounted appointments and free appointments are a very, very useful tool to get you to scale your business. So there are a few key considerations that you need to have when it comes to utilizing this tool. So it needs to be a deep enough discount that it is worth people's while. Think of that person as sitting on their couch at home. They got to get up off their couch, get themselves ready, get into the car, drive to your clinic, sit in your clinic for maybe 20 minutes, see you, and do it all in reverse. It's got to be a deep enough discount to get them up off that couch and get them to do that. If you're giving 5% off or a $5 off, that is not going to work. You are not going to find an effect. And what we've found with our clients worldwide is if it's any less than 50%, it isn't going to work. Even 60%, even 70%. So we would run an ad at the moment, and I think it's 29 euros instead of 79 euros for a particular type of discounted appointment. We run through Facebook. We only run it through Facebook. And I've dealt with that before in other podcasts. So it's got to be a deep enough discount. Otherwise, just don't bother. It's not going to work. It must have a strict limit, either a time limit or a time limit or a number limit. We find time limit works better. Think about Black Friday sale. Black Friday sale is not on all year. It's on for maybe 24 or 48 hours, and that's it. Miss it, tough. And you've got to have something like that. So it's got to be limited so that the person feels, okay, I can't get this any old time. They're doing this all of the time. Because that will devalue you. If you're constantly doing the same one all of the time and people can see, well, I can go anytime, like going to a what we call a pound shop where you can buy something for £1 any day, you're not in any rush. That will 100% that will devalue what you do. So you've got to structure correctly. You cannot repeat the same offer or discount or free appointment over and over and over and over again. So how do you get around that? So we have a few different ways, but you've got to have various offers. So if I give you an example, one might be that March is going to be plantar fasciitis month. And in March, you're going to have a discounted initial assessment of plantar fasciitis. Then that's gone once the 1st of April comes. And then in April, it's going to be maybe knee pain. And then maybe it might be plantar wart or verruca, depending on where you are in the world, in the next month, and so on. And they don't repeat all of the time. So what we might do is we might have 6 offers, your top 6 offers, that you only do every 6 months. Or you might decide to do 12 offers that you only do once a year. But you can't, so if you miss out on that plantar fascia one, you can't get it for another year. You can't ring me up and say, I missed it. Can I have it now? Answer is no. So there is a limit on what's happening. So that feels like it's worth getting. You need to make sure that you still deliver value in that appointment that meets the expectation that you gave. So when I give a free consultation in my clinic, I'm not going to do the same thing in a free consultation that I'll do in a paid consultation. That's not fair on the person who's come in and paid me. And I make that very clear in the marketing. So what I will do is, if you come into me for a paid consult, I'll take a subjective, I'll do an objective, I'll give you a diagnosis, and I'll start your treatment. That's pretty normal. In a free consult, what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll do a subjective, I'll do very, very basic objective, I'll give you what I think is a differential diagnosis, and I will tell you what your next step is. I will not give you a definite diagnosis. I will not treat you, okay? And I think that is very good value, and I think that meets the expectation that I have given people when I've made that offer. that I'll tell you what you have, I'll tell you why you have it, I'll tell you what I think you have or what the few things it could be, I'll tell you why I think you have it, and I'll tell you what I think you should do next to get rid of it, which is you need to come back and see me for a full consultation, etc. Now, if I think the patient doesn't come back to me, that's not appropriate, I won't bring them back. I'll say, look, I actually don't think we're the right clinic. This is where you can go for free. And then the patients are significantly feeling this is great value. This guy brought me in, he didn't try and sell me anything. He told me where to go to get help, and I'm going to do it. And I feel that that is great value. Now, once you've kind of figured all this out, okay, and you've got it worked out in your clinic how you're going to do it. And we do this for our clients. We have a plug and play system and we run it for them. Once this is done, you systemize it so that you can then start to scale it by running marketing towards it. So if you have this offer, you start to put it in various places: Facebook, Google, email, newspaper, depending on what the offer is, what the discount is, and so on. So you might do paid ads. So an example would be Facebook, and I've dealt with this before. We would do a discounted Facebook ad that pays for itself. So you actually never have to actually spend any money on Facebook after maybe 48 hours because it just pays for itself. Or you might even go and reactivate your database, your past database, because that's a really simple, quick way for you to get patients in the door who have lapsed with some sort of offer, some sort of discount. So I hope what this has done is it has dealt with the argument that discounting appointments or giving free appointments devalues your worth, which simply does not stand up to scrutiny. If you do it properly, it is not what your patients will think. They will be appreciative of what you're doing, and it gives you the opportunity to get more people in your diary that you can help that otherwise are not getting the help because maybe they haven't seen a reason to get up off the couch, go and see a healthcare worker, see a podiatrist, and get that problem that they have for quite a while sorted. So until next time, this is Lorcan O'Donnell from Podiatry Patients on Tap and More Practice Profits signing out.